It was a chilly Monday morning in a small town outside of Atlanta. Nurse Emily Carter parked her car outside St. Andrew's General Hospital, where she'd been working for the past 7 years. Always the first to arrive, she wore her badge proudly, her heart full of purpose. Known for her kindness and her way with patients, she'd become a quiet hero in the eyes of many. But that day, everything changed. As she walked through the sliding doors, she noticed two unfamiliar faces in suits waiting near the front desk. Before she could greet her usual co-workers, one of the men stepped forward and said coldly, "Emily Carter? You've been relieved of your duties effective immediately. HR will send the paperwork." What she gasped, her voice trembling. "Is this a mistake?" "No mistake," the man replied. "You violated protocol last week. You administered aid to an uninsured homeless man without prior approval." Emily's hands shook. He was dying on the sidewalk. He needed help, but they didn't care. Without another word, the men motioned for security. Within minutes, Emily was escorted out of the building in front of shocked patients and staff. Her badge, her stethoscope, everything was taken away as if she were a criminal. She stood outside the hospital, humiliated and devastated, holding back tears. Her life, her career, gone in an instant. That's when a deep voice called out, "Miss, are you all right?" She turned to see a tall, older man stepping out of a dusty pickup truck. He wore a weathered Army veteran cap and walked with a cane, but his eyes were sharp and commanding. Emily wiped her face. I just got fired. For helping someone." The man's gaze hardened. So he looked up at the hospital, then back at her. "Wait here." Without another word, he turned and began walking toward the hospital entrance, cane tapping, steps steady like a soldier walking into battle. No one knew who he was yet, but within minutes, everything inside was about to change. Inside the hospital, the mood shifted the moment the veteran stepped through the doors. The receptionist glanced up, expecting a patient or a visitor, but something about the man's presence made her pause. "Can I help you, sir?" she asked. The veteran didn't slow his stride. "You can call your supervisor," he said calmly. "Tell them Staff Sergeant William Harlan just walked in." The name didn't ring a bell for her, but something in his voice told her not to question it. She picked up the phone. Within minutes, the same two administrators who had thrown Emily out came briskly walking down the hallway. "Mr. Harlan," one of them said, offering a cautious smile. "We weren't expecting you weren't supposed to expect me," Harlan interrupted, his voice quiet but heavy with weight. "I saw what you did to that nurse. You made a mistake, and I'm here to fix it." The administrator's expression tightened. "With respect, this is internal. It doesn't concern you." "It does now," Harlan replied, pulling a worn leather folder from his coat. He flipped it open to reveal military documentation, commendation letters, and a card signed by the hospital's own board. At the top was a designation. "Major Donor and Veteran Advisory Council member. I've funded 2 wings of this hospital. One of them is the emergency care unit, the same one that nurse saved a man in front of." "You remember that detail?" The men exchanged glances. "I've also got connections in state media and the Veterans Health Alliance." "Do you really want tomorrow's headline to read, 'Hospital fires nurse for saving a dying man, veteran leader'?" Outraged, one administrator stepped forward, trying to recover. "Let's take this to my office." "No," Harlan snapped. "You'll bring her inside, now. Apologize. Reinstate her in front of every person who saw her humiliated." Outside, Emily stood frozen as the doors opened again. The same security guard now held the door for her, eyes lowered in shame. "Miss Carter," one of the men said, voice tight. "Would you step inside? There's been a reconsideration." The crowd that had witnessed her shame now watched in stunned silence as Emily walked back in, not as a disgraced employee, but as someone whose dignity had just been fiercely defended, and the man who made it happen. He stood tall behind her, as if guarding something far more important than bricks and walls. As Emily stepped back into the hospital, the once quiet corridor buzzed with whispers. Nurses peeked from behind station counters. A patient sitting in a wheelchair clapped slowly. Even the janitor paused mid-sweep to give her a respectful nod. She couldn't believe what was happening. The administrators led her and Sergeant Harlan to the main conference room. Harlan didn't sit. He stood with his hands folded over his cane like a general in a war room. The tension in the air was sharp. "We want to formally apologize," one administrator began, glancing between Emily and Harlan. "It appears we acted hastily." Emily folded her arms. "You humiliated me in front of my peers. You didn't ask questions. You didn't care about that man's life, just your paperwork." There was a pause. The second administrator cleared his throat. "You're absolutely right. We failed to uphold our values, and we're prepared to fully reinstate your position with back pay." "Stop," Harlan interrupted. "This isn't about paperwork or damage control. It's about character. That nurse acted with courage, and your hospital treated her like a liability." The silence in the room grew deeper. Emily looked at Harlan. "Why are you doing this for me?" He looked at her and smiled faintly. 22 years ago, I was brought to this hospital after a roadside bomb tore through my unit in Iraq. I wasn't expected to survive, but a young nurse stayed by my side for 36 straight hours. Her name was Ellen. She saved my life, and she reminded me what compassion really means. I promised myself I'd never let people like her get pushed aside. Tears welled in Emily's eyes. The administrators fidgeted uncomfortably. "We're willing to offer a public statement and a position on our ethics board, Emily." Emily hesitated. "Only if it means real change, not just a cover-up." Harlan nodded. "And I'll be watching." Closely, they left the room not just with an apology, but with a promise. Emily was rehired. Her badge returned. But something bigger had happened. The hospital now knew eyes were on them, not just from the public, but from veterans, staff, and people who wouldn't let kindness be punished again. As they exited, Harlan turned to her. "Now, how about some pancakes? You look like someone who needs a decent breakfast." Emily laughed for the first time that day. "Only if you're buying." The small-town diner just a few blocks from the hospital hadn't changed in decades. Its red vinyl booths, warm coffee aroma, and clinking silverware made it feel like a place untouched by time. Emily and Harlan settled into a corner booth, both still processing the whirlwind of the morning. A waitress approached with a smile, coffee for the gentleman and the nurse who just made local legend. Emily blinked. "Wait, how do you—" The waitress chuckled, nodding toward the TV mounted in the corner. A local news anchor spoke animatedly, and beneath him ran the headline, "Veteran defends, nurse kicked out of hospital, hospital responds amid backlash." Harlan sipped his coffee like it was nothing. Small towns, news travels fast. Emily shook her head in disbelief. "This feels unreal. One minute, I'm being thrown out like trash. The next, I'm on the news, sitting with a war hero." Harlan's face softened. "You're not on the news because of me. You're on the news because you did the right thing when no one else would. People respect that." A couple sitting nearby leaned over. "Excuse us," the woman said. "We just wanted to say thank you. My brother's a vet too. What you did, both of you, it matters." Emily gave a small, grateful nod. But inside, something was stirring, something bigger than anger or pride. It was purpose. She realized her role as a nurse wasn't just about hospitals or uniforms. It was about standing for people who had no voice. And now, her voice had found a much louder platform. Just then, her phone buzzed. Dozens of notifications lit up the screen. Comments from nurses across the country, messages from patients, even an invitation to speak at a nursing conference in D.C. Harlan looked at her. "Seems like you've got an audience now." She laughed softly, overwhelmed but inspired. "What do I even say?" "Tell the truth," Harlan said. "Tell them about the man you helped, and remind them that policy should never outrank humanity." Emily looked out the window, her reflection staring back stronger, more certain than she'd ever seen it. As they finished breakfast, Harlan stood with effort, gripping his cane. "You've got a lot ahead of you, Nurse Carter. Don't stop now, Emily won't. Not anymore. Because when one voice stands up, it gives others the courage to follow."